let's get into the giant mailbag.
What crazy thing did City do this week?
It's time for Mattress Running the Numbers. Ready for the main event?
The main event.
Frequent Miler on the air starts now. Today's main event, First Class for 5, gambling on Frequent Miler's 2023 Team Challenge. We've got a different type of show today. We're going to be telling a story of some excitement that went on within our team yesterday, where yesterday is not yesterday compared to when you're listening, but the day before we recorded the show.
Earlier this week. Well, earlier the week we recorded the show. I guess you could be listening to it in the future. Yeah, okay, anyway. There was some gambling going on.
It's yesterday to me and Nick right now. Anyway, before we get into that part, I will read one little quote that came out during our adventure, which is me saying, I think we have to do our team challenge in Japan. No choice, really. So we'll talk about what that means, why I said it later in the show. Normally, we jump into the giant mailbag right now, but today's giant mail kicked off our whole main event, so we'll get to that later. What do we have next, Nick?
So first, let's talk about Mattress running the numbers for this week. So this week's Mattress running the numbers, we got a couple of interesting things going on. So first off, we've got Bilt is going to be offering a transfer bonus on February 1st. This will be one day only, so it'll only be February 1st. But if you have Bilt points, you may want to listen up because they're going to be offering a 100% transfer bonus to Hawaiian Miles. So you'll get 2 Hawaiian Miles for every 1 Bilt rewards point that you transfer over. Now, Hawaiian Miles is a program we never ever talk about because their award chart mostly stinks and their award availability is usually tough to find. However, with this transfer bonus, it becomes much more interesting. So, for instance, if you could find Saver First Class from the East Coast to the US, that's usually 40,000 miles one way, you'd only pay 20,000. But even if you don't pay, or even if you don't find the Saver availability, the 65K, I don't know, it might be interesting to some people, or the upgrade awards could be particularly interesting. Better yet, if you're interested in going through Hawaii to Asia, then I think it really gets interesting because Hawaii to Japan, Korea, Australia, New Zealand, you would have to transfer 32,000 Bilt points for a Saver business class award across the Pacific. Or if you wanted to go to, French Polynesia, you're looking at in business class, again, like 23,000 miles one way or so at Saver availability. Or the big one, if you can find Virgin Atlantic award space going to the UK, they charge 125,000 miles round trip and much less in surcharges. So you'd be talking 62,000 miles round trip and really reasonable surcharges to fly Virgin Atlantic to the UK. So if you've got a lot of Bilt points, you'll want to log in on February 1st and consider this. But of course, you'd have to find all the award availability and everything and be ready to rock and roll. I really wouldn't want to be stuck with a whole bunch of Hawaiian Miles unless I knew I was going to be able to use them right away.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because there's so much pressure. You only have one day to decide to do it. And the downside, many transfers, like if there was a bonus to American Airlines or to Hyatt or, something where you'd be pretty sure, hey, I'm going to get good value, even if I don't know exactly, why right now, you'd be pretty sure. But Hawaiian,
that's not it with Hawaiian.
I don't think I would do this one unless I had something lined up.
Yeah, I think probably not. Although the exception, tough to say, but the exception is that Virgin Atlantic sweet spot I only recently found and wrote about in a post, the 125,000 round trip to the UK, and I think it's like $400 in taxes and fees, which is far less than Virgin Atlantic would charge you. And so that's the kind of thing that if you've got a lot of flexibility, I know I'll eventually find that available probably to book. Now, will Hawaiian change their award chart before I get a chance to do it? I don't know. And gambling on one sweet spot is always like a poor idea. So I'd be hesitant unless I had a lot of flexibility and plans to probably visit Europe this year so that I could be reasonably confident that I'd use that before it's gone. So, before something changes.
Right. Come to think of it, if Virgin Atlantic still had flights out of Detroit, I might consider that as well. They don't. You've got them out of JFK, and there's multiple a day, so the chance of getting award flights to and from JFK and between JFK and London is actually very high. So I could see gambling in that situation.
Yeah, and I don't have built points, so it's easy for me to gamble the theoretical built points that I mean, I only have a
That's
thousand built
right.
points, or it's very easy for me to make that gamble. But if I were really in this situation where I had to transfer, a couple 100,000 or something to book my family, maybe I would be more hesitant than I am
Yeah.
in theoretical speak.
I could also see people gambling if they're at an airport that Hawaiian serves directly, because even if you found standard award availability instead of saver, it's not a bad price to since you got your points doubled to
Right.
book that way. So I could see doing it that way as well. So
True.
for
True.
some people, it might make sense. For most people, do it only if you have an award in mind and it's available.
Absolutely. All right. Very good. The other mattress running the numbers this week that's going to be of interest to far more people is Marriott's newest promotion. So the newest promotion, I think, gives you 1,000 bonus points every stay, if I'm right. But
Every day, I
every
believe.
day, is that what it is?
Every night. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
The more important thing than the 1,000 points is
Yeah,
you get double elite night credits, and that's between
that's
February
right.
7th and April 23rd. That sounds pretty hot. What do you think, Greg? Have you registered for
Yeah,
this? Will you?
I
Will you take
have.
advantage?
I have. It's only paid stays, but other than that, it's pretty flexible. It doesn't have restrictions. Like I think it was last year, it had to be like a 2-night or longer stay. This doesn't have that kind of restriction. So you really can, hunt for the best deals. And it has me, it's pretty exciting. I mean, because not that Marriott Elite status is all that exciting, but there aren't that many ways to get those, extra nights cheaply, extra elite nights if you're going for a higher level of status than what, for example, your credit cards might give you automatically. So I like this one. If you're interested in, getting to Marriott Platinum status or getting to Titanium status, which also gives you United Silver status, then I think you have to pay attention to this. And personally, I'm looking at some stays during that time that I currently have booked with Hyatt, and I'm wondering, should I change some of those to Marriott stays?
Yeah.
It might make sense, especially
Yeah.
there's Amex
Sure.
offers right now for some money off of Marriott as well, and Chase offer I think as well. So you could save money that way for the stay that is getting you double elite nights would be a good deal.
Yeah, and I recently got targeted for 18% cash back at Marriott through Capital One Shopping. So, if you're stacking that and a card with an Amex offer and getting double elite night credit, then yeah, I think it probably would be worth switching stays over to Marriott. Because I mean, if you get the business card and you have a personal card, right, you get one of each, then you've got 30 elite nights to start the year. So you're 20 nights short of platinum status, the free breakfast status that most of us would be after. So 10 nights during this period would get you there. Or if you'll have a few nights later on in the year, then you do a few nights during this period to get the double elite credit. I don't know, I think it would certainly make sense to consider switching it over. I'm a little hesitant because I only have globalist status through the end of February. So like right now I'm looking at Hyatt for February stays, and there's
Makes
definitely
sense.
part of me that's like, oh man, but the double elite night, I don't know. We'll see what we do. But yeah, the key thing I think that is worth repeating one more time is that it's only on paid stays. So even though you get elite night credit on award stays, you won't get the double elite night credit unless it's a paid stay. Is that correct?
That's right. Exactly. Only paid stays. You have to book through Marriott directly, or clicking through a portal to Marriott still counts as booking directly. We get that question a lot. So you can earn extra rewards by starting in a portal. Usually if you go through things like Expedia and things like that, that's not going to work. You're not going to get any elite nights, let alone double. So just be careful with that kind of thing. This is the type of topic normally it might have made our main event, but
Right.
we've got other things to talk about today. The last thing I'll say here is I think we both should commit to switching our Hyatt stays to Marriott publicly, because maybe Hyatt then will respond with their own
Yeah, Hyatt.
double elite night promo.
I don't want that sweet Hyatt. I want double elite nights with Marriott. Is that believable? I didn't believe it. Okay, so so that's Mattress running the numbers. Let's talk about some noteworthy news this week, because we've got a really juicy main
Yeah.
event, but man, there's a lot of stuff that happened this week. So what happened with
There,
Bilt?
Yeah, there really is. Again, this is a topic that probably would have made the main event on any other week. Bilt, which has a free rewards program, has added to their app a integration with a website called point.me, which is a award searching tool that normally costs what is it,
twelve
$12 a
bucks a month,
month,
yeah, or
or
129
$5
a
if you do
year.
just a 24-hour pass.
Right.
Um, they have that now integrated into the app for free. So you could sign up for Bilt for free, and then you could use Point Me for free. The only main limitation really is that they'll only show you results from programs that Bilt can transfer to. But Bilt transfers to a lot of really good ones, so it's not really that much of a limitation. What do you think?
It really isn't. And the fact of the matter is, because they partner with programs that are in One World, Star Alliance, and Sky Team, if you know a little bit about award charts or study them a little bit, then you'll recognize when you see, oh, there's, a lot Polish flight that's available through Air Canada and United. I guess that's probably also available through Avianca. So if you've got Avianca miles, or if you
Yeah.
have Amex membership rewards points or Capital One points or City points that transfer to Avianca, you'll know that you can check that too. Even if you don't have the award charts memorized from the other programs, you'll at least know where else to check if you need to. But yeah, I mean, Bilt covers the programs that are going to be most familiar to most people anyway, I think. So yeah, I think this is an awesome value add. It makes so much sense. It's a great partnership for both sides. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't want to come across like I'm tooting Bilt's horn too much here, but like, this is awesome. There's no, I don't think that there's another perspective to be had on this other than that this is an awesome value add, because it makes the program so much easier. And my goodness, you think all the people you've ever known that have been new to this game, including, you, the listener, at some point you were new, right? Imagine how convenient it would have been if you had the ability to search all of a program's transfer partners right within the app and click a button to transfer your points. I mean, this makes it super duper easy. And like I said, great also for those of us more experienced that just want to be able to search it, because I love Point.me. I use it all the time. So being able to get access for free, I mean, terrific. Great deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Great enhancement. Excited about that one. All right. One more news item. I don't have news really, but anyway, Stephen posted this week, I guess will be last week by the time you listen to this, that Frequent Miler helped our Facebook group, Frequent Miler Insiders members, earn over 30 million points by publishing Amex referral links for those group members.
That's
Holy
pretty
cow.
wild. That's pretty wild. 30 million. That's amazing. And he's estimating there, but I think it's a very fair estimate based on all the comments that have come in from readers over the time.
Yeah.
I think he was conservative enough with that number. But yeah, I mean, 30 million, that's just unbelievable. And an awesome thing. I mean, I think that it goes to show, first of all, how good the Amex referral program is. I mean, if you have Amex cards like that, what a great deal that is, that you can pick up some nice, easy points. And I think that it's awesome that we've been able to, share the best offer with readers. So readers get the best offer for the card. Whoever wants to sign up is getting access to the best offer that they won't find on most other sites. And B, it's benefiting the loyal readers who enjoy our content and and hang out and participate in conversations. So it's awesome to be able to provide that for people with something that we would link to no matter what. Great to be able to do that.
So before you get too excited, I do want to point out a couple things about this, that the reason we were able to share these links, because we always post just whatever the best offer is for any given card, regardless of whether it benefits us in any way. And the reason we were able to do these particular ones is that some Amex cardholders, but not all by a long shot, I would say, a small percentage of Amex cardholders of platinum cards and gold cards, both the consumer varieties of each, have the ability to refer people to a better than usual offer. So if you're one of those lucky people where right in your login you see if you refer someone to this platinum card, they'll get 150,000 points if they meet the, requirements. Or the gold card, if it says right there that the referee will get 90,000 point offer, then you have one of these special offers that are available, and you can, in our Frequent Miler Insiders group, put your link in the right place, and we'll get around to using it, and you'll get all the referral points, which lately have been maxing out. It used to be they'd max out at 55,000 points, but a lot of people now are the limit has expanded to 100,000. So that's exciting too.
It's very exciting, very exciting. And just to add a little bit of clarity to what Greg said, when he talked about your referral link offer, he means when you log into your American Express account, like your card account, and you go to the card page and it says like refer friends, and there, when it describes the offer as your friend will get 150K, I'm not talking after you've clicked through, but before you've even clicked your referral link, it says your friend will get 150K when you refer them. Those are the links that we're looking for, because the other ones, if you just take a link from some random Amex card, it will sometimes show the 150K offer, but not 100% of the time. And we can only use links on the site that are going to show the offer that we're advertising every time you click on them. So, those people with the magic links, congratulations. I'm jealous. We haven't had one in my household that links to this. We've got plenty of platinum and gold cards in my household, but none of them with links to the 150K or 90K offers. But awesome that so many readers have been able to take advantage of that. Just great deal all around. And thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping other people get the good offer and for sharing your links.
And let me just say quickly, if you're not one of the lucky ones with one of these good offers, it may be that your friends, that you could still refer friends and tell them to try like multiple browsers until they see the 150,000 offer for the platinum card or the 90,000 offer for the gold card, because often we don't know why, but Amex like sort of randomly targets these better offers, and so if your friend can get that better offer, then it would be a good sign up deal for them, and you would get the referral bonus as well.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so that's awesome news this week. Lots of stuff going on. It's been a wild and crazy week. Speaking of a wild and crazy week, we got to talk about awards we booked this week. Or I don't know, did we book anything interesting, Greg?
That is our main event today, is booking awards this week. So we'll jump right into it. First Class for 5, Gambling on Frequent Milers 2023 Team Challenge. That's our main event. It all started with our giant mailbag, though. We got a tiny giant mail on Wednesday that said the subject line was "Wide Open ANA First Class, Multiple Seats," and the body of it simply said SFO-HND/NRT. HND and NRT are the airport codes for the two airports in Tokyo, and SFO is the airport code for San Francisco. So basically, the email was saying that there's wide open ANA first class awards between San Francisco and Tokyo. And the email also included an image from a program called Seat Spy that shows award availability. So now, Nick, you were the first to respond to that, because your first surprise was that Seat Spy was showing ANA award availability, right?
Well, right. Like I started typing an email back to say, no, Seat Spy doesn't show first class ANA availability. But I recognized that this reader had posted the night before in Frequent Miler Insiders about having booked ANA first class. So I stopped myself and I said, well, maybe they know something that I don't, because I can't imagine that A, they would have booked a first class award, and then B, sent this email about the wide open availability if they weren't sure it was right. So I went to Seat Spy, curious what they were even looking at to kind of see and get an idea. Am I crazy or are they crazy? Because Seat Spy, if you're not familiar, is a tool for looking for available award seats on select airlines. And it only works with a handful of airlines. That handful has grown over time, but it's still only, 5, 6, 8 airlines, something like that. And so the basic gist of Seat Spy is you click one button and you can see a year of availability in both directions on a specific route, but you can only look one route at a time, only nonstops, and only for Saver awards. to my knowledge, on the airline you've selected out of the dropdown. But what I noticed was happening, that the reader had hinted at, apparently, or assumed I knew, I don't know which, was that when you looked at that route, it would show the dates with business or first class availability. When you clicked on them, you could see the price was 121,000 miles on the days that ultimately had first class availability. And that stood out to me because I know that United's, A, that the tool is only set up to show Saver Awards, and B, United's Saver price for business class, they don't have a first class. Their Saver price for business class to Asia is not 121,000 miles. I immediately recognized, no, that's the ANA first class price. So what it turns out is apparently Seat Spy, if you're searching a route, let's say you're using United Airlines, if you're searching a route that United serves, and they do serve San Francisco to Haneda and Narita airports in Tokyo, that's also served by one of their partners, it'll show the availability for both at Saver level. And so, again, by looking at the price of the seats, I could immediately see that they were going to be first class awards. And there's actually a slider you can play with that I didn't notice until this week when this happened, in order to see where the seats come in or cut off. And so you could see immediately that if you went under 121,000 miles, none of those days had availability. And then all of a sudden, if you popped it all the way up to 121, you could see tons of dates, especially in April and May. April and May were totally wide open, some in the beginning of June even. So that was an incredible tip, because then, of course, I went to united.com to cross-reference and found that, yes, indeed, there were multiple seats. Not only was there ANA first class award availability, which is news in and of itself. I mean, they historically have released one seat on every flight. Somebody books it, and it's really spotty and hard to find. But like, finding more than one seat in ANA first class, I can count on one hand the number of times I've seen two. And and so anything more than two would be like, I just a never before seen thing. And not only were we seeing dates with two, we were seeing dates with 3 and 4 and 5 seats in first class.
Well, we're getting ahead though, because we didn't know about the 5 at first.
No,
right?
we didn't. You're right.
So our award booking adventure started with a post to our team Slack channel where Nick wrote, was anybody else aware that Seat Spy would show ANA first class availability via United? I thought Seat Spy was only looking at United Metal. So that sort of just question about, did anyone know this, sparked a reply thread that is now close to 300 replies long. But
the bottom line is, no, nobody did know that, right?
Nobody knew that. Nick followed up by saying 4 seats in first class on a lot of days. I don't know if they have the new product on that route or not. And after a little bit more back and forth, I wrote, holy cow, it is the suite.
The suite.
The suite.
What's that?
Okay. So first, when Nick wrote, I don't know if it's the new product or not, and when I said it's the suite, I was confirming that it's the new product. What is that? On only a select few ANA airplanes, they have all new cabins with brand new first class, big first class seats that are named the suite. So each one is called the suite. And then they have a new business class cabin where I think those are called the room. The room? Yep. The room, which is kind of weird because you'd think the room is bigger than the suite. But either way, they get incredible reviews. They look amazing. And it's the type of thing I know I've been anxious to try flying either the room or the suite for quite a while, but it's been on so few routes. And I tried really hard with my ANA round the world trip when we were doing the 3 Cards 3 Continents challenge last year, to get on a flight that had the new product, that had it would have been the room in that case because I was flying business class, but they had stopped flying that new product 3 days before I was going to be departing from California, and I couldn't make it work to go earlier. So
bummer. Yeah. No, I mean, I've looked too, and it's not widely available. You know, ANA has historically been good about releasing a little bit of business class space right when the schedule opens. But then, like, my understanding of ANA has always been they release what they're going to release, and then that's it. They're not going to release more, probably, unless somebody cancels. Now, I did read that sometimes close in they release some things, but it hasn't been easy, especially in the new product. Hasn't been easy at all, right? So very hard to find the room. So the suite, even harder, because if they had award availability in the suite, it was basically always one seat at most, and once somebody booked that, then there was nothing. So finding the suite with 4 seats was a pretty amazing, exciting thing, right?
Yeah, it sure was. And so from my perspective, Nick was busy trying to find availability for his own family for a particular trip he has planned. And but at some point I realized, wait, these dates that have this wide open availability are overlapping with a time period where our entire team had blocked off our calendars to reserve for our next team challenge. We didn't know and still don't know what our next team challenge will be exactly, but we knew roughly when we were going to do the challenge. We had that blocked off. And so I was like, oh my gosh, this would make so much sense to book this incredible deal. And we've got to do it fast, because we knew when a word space like this opens up, it disappears really quickly. So what did you think? My next post to the channel, once I thought of this, was, and I quote, "I think we have to do our team challenge in Japan. No choice, really."
At that point, I started to get really excited, because I definitely, there was definitely part of me that was like, oh man, like, this is an opportunity we're not going to get twice. And then you said that. And first of all, like Greg said, I was looking to try to make this work for a family trip that I'm taking, and it wasn't working. I couldn't make it happen. I was like, oh my goodness, how am I going to let 4 seats in the suite slip through my fingers? So I was bummed already that, like, I wasn't going to be able to make it work for my own trip. And then Greg swoops in for the save and says, I think we need to do our June challenge in Japan. But of course, I didn't know if he was serious or not. I didn't know if he was just, I think we joke a lot, so I didn't know if he was being facetious or not. So I had to ask, so are you serious? How are we doing it? Are you just going to book it? Like, is this going to happen? Like, are you for real? Because, like, this is something that, of course, Greg and I were going back and forth on Slack, but, we're not the only people on the Frequent Miler team. So there some other folks to try to consult with and whatnot. It was kind of a haphazard decision, right? But that's what you got to do when you see availability like this, because
you do. Sometimes you just have to jump on these things. It reminds me of when I think it was 2013. There was a mistake fare, American Airlines. They had business class to China round trip for about $400, and the all of the opportunities were disappearing. I just jumped on and booked something, and I booked like a Tuesday returning Friday, because that was all I could find and that would fit in my schedule. And it turned out that it takes a really long time to get to China, so I ended up only having one full day in Beijing.
But you got to the Great Wall, and
I had a fantastic day. Yeah, I did all kinds of things, all in one day, thanks to a tour guide that took me around everywhere. And it was an experience I am so thankful I got to have. And so same kind of thing here, that, like, when are we gonna be able to fly the suite, let alone fly as the whole team?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Right. Like, I mean, if one of us flew the suite, we'd be like, how often are we going to have the opportunity for that? 2 of us would be like, oh, wow, that's not going to happen twice. We have the free time lined up and the availability for 2 people. It would have been amazing to begin with. So, and Greg said we knew it would go fast, and dinner was ready, and I was trying to write up the post and post it, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead. But when I sat down at the dinner table, and my wife was like, what's going on? And I kind of explained to her, and she got that it was a big deal, but of course didn't quite get it either at the same time. And I was like, well, the post is publishing in 1 minute, and I give it about an hour before all the availability is gone. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, probably about an hour, and it's going to be gone. Sure enough, that was about it. It was about spot on an hour later.
Yeah. So at this point, so we have the four writers on the team, and Carrie's our creative director. She was not planning when we've talked about the challenge in the past and did some sort of pre-planning for it. She wasn't planning on competing in the challenge, but we had brought up the question for her whether she would like to travel with us if we all go sort of the same place or whatever. And she was open to it. It was sort of non-committal, like she would be happy to do it, but it wasn't really necessary. So at this point, I was still thinking we were probably going to book just the four of us on ANA first class because we hadn't yet seen five people at once. I started looking for flights to Japan from San Francisco, and I couldn't find, within the date range that was available to us, I couldn't find a single date that had actually more than two available on the flight we wanted. Now, let me clarify that. The new product only went to HND, Haneda Airport, not to NRT. So I would find more availability on the flight to NRT, for example. I didn't want that one. I just wanted HND. Now, I didn't find four to NRT either. But then I started looking from Japan back to the US, and I found within, I mean, earlier than we'd want to return, but sort of within the dates we had held, 5 seats, first class. I wrote it on Slack. I said 5 seats on the return. Can we push up the challenge a little bit?
And of course I was immediately like, yeah, we can. because of course I was bummed. I was like trying to book this thing, and then I was trying to write up the post, and I was like, man, I'm not even going to be able to do this, and I'm writing up the post, and then Greg swoops in for the save with 5 dates, or 5 seats rather, on a date that would work, and so he wants to know if we can push up the challenge a little bit. And I said, yeah. Now, we had set some dates like Greg said, and it took us a while to go through our calendars and try to figure out a time that worked for everybody. So I feel like there was probably some sort of conflict that led to where our beginning date was, and this return would make it a little bit tight. But I think I said something to the effect of, well, maybe a $12,000 or $15,000 first class flight will give somebody the incentive they need to fix whatever the conflict is.
That's right.
Because that's I didn't have the conflict, but that would have maybe made me retool plans.
Yeah. So one thing we didn't mention before, these flights first class cost only 55,000 Virgin Atlantic miles. So I know we're talking about flying ANA, but they're partners with Virgin Atlantic. Virgin Atlantic has this incredible sweet spot award where you can fly first class on ANA for as low as 55,000 points. Now, I have over 1 million Virgin Atlantic miles. So 55,000 per person, that's like nothing for me. I'm very happy to spend that. So I was ready to call and book it. But we needed everyone's birthdays first. I knew we needed the, full name and birthday. So at this point, only Nick and I were on the team Slack, and we were like, okay, how do we get everyone else's birthday?
So we had to scramble. We
had to scramble. It was kind of fun doing our little treasure hunt. Nick and I think around the same time remembered that we had both been invited to Steven's 40th birthday party. So we were able to find the old messages about that and find out exactly when his birthday was, including the year, because it would have been 40 years before the date of the party. So boom, got Steven's. Carrie finally jumped on a Slack, and she had no idea what was going on, but she was like, I'll just give you my birthday anyway, because I know you're looking for that. Something interesting's going on.
I give her credit.
Understand it.
I give Carrie credit there, because she's like, didn't hesitate. She's like, okay, whatever. You're asking for my birthday. Sure. Here you go.
Yeah, exactly. And then Nick and I were separately searching for Tim's birthday. I think we found it around the same time as well.
I think so.
I found it. I realized I'm friends with him on Facebook, and he actually had it in his Facebook profile. Where did you find it?
I Googled and I found these shady public records websites, the type. You Google somebody's name and you can find a bunch of public records. So I did that, and I cross-referenced on a couple, and now there was, another Tim that was like 70 years old or something, and I figured that's not our guy. So I don't know for sure, but I figured he probably isn't that old. He looks younger than that to me. So I found a few that seemed to jive with about how old I figured Tim was, and so they all seem to have the same birth date, and lo and behold, it matched the Facebook birth date. So we had Tim.
We did, and so we were all set. I got on the phone and I immediately got on a long hold, listening to some upbeat music from Virgin Atlantic. And while I was on the phone, Carrie wrote, "I still only halfway know what this is about because I didn't read the full thread, but I'm excited."
That's good. I can appreciate that kind of enthusiasm and that faith, right? That faith that this must be exciting. If we've got like 200 messages going on back and forth and we're asking for birthdays, then there must be something interesting. And I think she immediately got into the thrill of the hunt in terms of finding the information that we needed to. I think that gave it a fun dynamic. I think it wouldn't have been as exciting if we had all the information we needed right from the get-go.
It really did. It made things more exciting. Nick wrote back to Carrie saying, "For your benefit, Carrie, this is unbelievable first-class space for multiple passengers. That comes a week after Gary Leff, who writes View from the Wing, wrote about how ANA first class was becoming impossible to book." So the timing was ironic there. So I finally, about 20 minutes into waiting on hold or something like that, an agent finally picks up the phone. I tell him what I'm trying to do. He understands immediately, and then tells me he's going to need everybody's middle name. And he makes up a story saying that unlike other carriers, ANA won't let you fly unless your middle name is on the ticket. So, all right. Next scramble, figure out everybody's middle name.
Because if we didn't have everybody's birthday, we didn't have everybody's middle name, right? But the good news is at this point, Greg knows his middle name, and I'm on Slack, so I give my middle name right away, and Carrie's there, so she responds with her middle name. But there are two people who weren't around.
Right. And so how did we somehow we found Tim's, or did you find that?
Yeah. So, well, let me back
did.
up. I did tell Greg, I'm going to go on record right here. I did tell Greg, just tell him there's no middle name and it'll be fine. I gave him my middle name, but I said, just tell him that I don't have a middle name, or that people don't have a middle name, because that happens, right? Some people don't have a middle name. And I swear, like, the vast majority of tickets that I book, I don't put in middle name. That's why Greg said that the agent made a big stink about how ANA is different, because I think that they were trying to differentiate the fact that they recognize that usually if you don't put in a middle name, it's fine. It doesn't matter. But they were saying that for ANA, it would. Now, I've flown ANA before, and I was pretty sure I didn't put in my middle name, but I didn't know for sure. So I gave Greg my middle name. Then, yeah, I started, right back with my shady records websites for Tim, and I found a couple of different middle names, but there was one that was on a number of sites, and I was like, okay, well, this is probably his middle name, so let's go with this. And that was a good guess.
And sure enough, it turned out to be right. Yeah. And we went with no middle name for Stephen. We didn't find one right away. Stephen was sleeping in Mauritius at the time, and we had no way to wake him up.
The guy is usually awake until like 4 o'clock in the morning, decided to sleep the night we needed him to be awake at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Come on,
Steve, where are you doing?
Yeah. And so, at this point, we already have. I'm starting to tell the agent everybody's full names and everything, get it all finalized. And Tim finally jumps on and says, "Just catching up on all this. Holy Moses!" And then a few minutes later, I wrote, "It's booked," with about 10 exclamation points.
Which was an exciting moment. I mean, like, once I got that was like, because I was pretty excited, but of course you got to get through to an agent, you got to get it booked, you got to give all the information, and little did we know at this point, but Gary at View from the Wing had actually posted about this availability before we did. I didn't realize that until hours later after we had published it. So already there were people on the hunt booking things up, so there was a good chance that somebody might have gotten this booked up while Greg was on the phone, trying to find our middle names, right?
That's right. That's right. So anyway, it was exciting leading up to it. It was fun, like trying to figure out everyone's birth dates and middle names, and then getting it booked. Whoa, what a huge I don't know. I'm not to say relief. It was just very exciting to get that accomplished. We felt like, we had already won the challenge by getting
Well, yeah, because there were
first class seats.
right, 5 first class seats, and then we had to gamble on, okay, are we sure that this is the right birthday and the right names, and like,
Right.
does the passport say what we think the full name ought to be, and like,
Yep.
is Tim a
Yep.
Timmy, or like are we gonna find out something we didn't know later on down the road, or he goes by Tim, but that's not really his first name or something. We don't know those things, so we're gambling on all that
Yeah.
stuff in terms of names and birthdays, and that Stephen
Right.
doesn't have a middle name because we don't know what it is if there is one. So there was
Right. Right. So it
there.
felt a little unsure, but at the same time, very excited. What we believe 99.9%, it was all set. So I forwarded the confirmation to the whole team, and Nick wrote back a little while later.
Yeah, I mean, like he told me that he forwarded it, and I didn't even look at it initially because I was like, I never really look at them. They always send them, and maybe sometimes I click on them, but even when I do, I don't really look at them closely. I think I clicked on the email, but I must not have looked at it closely. I went back to it later on. I don't even know why. And when I say later on, just a few minutes later, and I'm like, oh no. Oh no. My middle name is not spelled correctly. Not only is it not spelled correctly, because it's not spelled correctly, it's not the right name. And
Yeah.
my middle name is Alexander. So Nicholas Alexander Reyes. And my ticket said Nicholas Alexandra Reyes.
Right. 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 So one of the we only had two middle names we knew for sure going into this, and one of those two got misspelled somehow.
How does that happen? How does that happen? It's like, it's Alexander. It's not a tough name to spell. It's not like particularly challenging. And like Greg said, it was like one of the two we knew. And I was the first person to respond with my middle
Right.
name. I was like, did Greg
Right,
get it
right.
wrong? Like I typed it like twice at least.
The random middle name we found on the internet for Tim was right.
Right.
The one we knew 100% was put in wrong.
When I scrolled back, I was like, did I type it wrong? And Greg didn't double confirm that Alexandra was really my middle name. I was like, wait, did I actually write Alexandra? Was it a typo? And he didn't double check that with me. But no, I did. I wrote Alexander. And of course, you confirmed that you did tell the agent Alexander, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I said, all right, I'm going to deal with this in the morning. We'll find out whether Stephen really has a middle name or not. Turns out he does, but in the meantime, we also confirmed that ANA doesn't really check or care whether you leave your middle name off the ticket. In fact, I'm 99% sure when I flew with Maisie to on ANA to Saigon from Tokyo last year that we didn't have our middle names on the tickets. So, I knew from experience that that was fine. So Stephen was all set, but I still wanted to get Nick sorted out.
Right.
So I called this morning as we're recording. It was this morning. I called Virgin Atlantic again. And I got an agent right away. It was pretty startling. Apparently, morning is the time to call from the U.S. To get an agent in the U.K. In fact, she said that it was the end of a long day for her. So, and I told her what was up. Her first reaction was like, "Oh no, we're not going to be able to fix this." I said, "Well, it's only two letters are a little bit off. Can you at least, change them one at a time? Because I've read that you can change names like one letter at a time." And she said, she said something to the effect of, with any other airline, we could do that, but ANA has special rules. So apparently the Virgin Atlantic reps believe that ANA is special in every possible way. And she said that there's absolutely that their contract with ANA was such that they can't make any changes to tickets once they're issued, even minor things like changing a letter on a name. And she said, so I'm going to have to cancel it and rebook it. And
No,
I was like, wait,
no.
no. I was very, very insistent. I said, no. I said, this is first class on ANA. There's never availability. I don't want to take the risk of canceling and rebooking. Let's just leave it as is. I mean, yes, check whether there's something you could do to change the letter, but don't cancel and rebook. So she seemed to understand, and put me on hold for a long, long time.
Which is the time when Greg it let us know that that's the agent's first response was that they'd have to cancel and rebook, and then he made it clear that that's not what we wanted to do. And I told him, I'm glad you did. Hopefully the agent took it more clearly than your pronunciation of Alexander.
That's right.
Because
And
I was worried. Like, I was nervous at that point. If that's what she
yeah,
thought the solution was, I was nervous that, she might try to go rogue and cancel that. And of course, we didn't want that, because if you're not intimately familiar with award booking, when you cancel an award, sometimes it goes back in inventory and you can book it again, but sometimes it doesn't, and there's no way to know for sure. Patterns change on that all the time, and sometimes it'll eventually go back into award inventory, but not immediately, maybe not until after midnight, right, or something, if it even does. And so, like, canceling it was super risky, especially because, I mean, let's be real here. I'm somewhat skeptical that ANA really meant to release 5 award seats in first class from the get-go. There's only 8 seats in that cabin, and they charge, like $12,000 round trip, or one way. They charge like $12,000. I'm not sure that they meant to release 5 seats to partners at 55,000 Virgin Atlantic miles, or, whatever, a couple $100 Virgin Atlantic gives them for that. So I'm very much not sure that seat would go back in inventory if she canceled it. Yeah. So now I'm kind of on pins and needles, and I'm telling Greg, like, don't worry about it. Like, I'll just show up at the airport and they'll fix it. Like, I'll just show up. We're ticketed in first class. They're going to, give us good service. I'll just show up. Who knows? Like, who's going to even question it? They might not even see it. And if they do, then I'm sure somebody's going to fix that. Right. So
right.
At this point, I'm almost regretful that Greg even called.
Me too. And, there was nothing I could do. I'm on hold listening to music. I even wrote in the Slack channel, I'm praying that she doesn't go rogue. I thought I was joking when I said
that. But really, it turns out you were jinxing.
I wasn't joking. The agent finally picked up the phone and said something to the effect of, I decided to take a gamble. And she said she split off Nick's ticket from the rest of us and canceled it.
Oh my goodness. Exactly what you asked her not to do. Why do people have so much trouble following directions? Like, simple direction.
I don't know that I was ever closer to having a heart attack than that moment. But she followed immediately with, but she was successfully able to book it again. So at that point in the conversation, she had the award held again for Nick. And then the rest of the call was all about making sure that I would get refunded for the original Nick ticket. And then I had to give her my credit card again to pay for the fees on the new ticket. But it actually got issued. We got the email confirmation right away for Nick. Then we had to check. Did this screw up?
Right. Did she mess up the other 4? Right.
But luckily we were able to log on to manage booking and see that they're all intact. Thanks to Nick explaining a tip that hadn't occurred to me right away, which was when I went into ANA's website to manage booking, I put in my first name and last name and ticket number, and the ticket wouldn't come up. But Nick, do you want to explain the trick in this case?
Well, you might have noticed on your boarding pass in the past, at times your name will come in all together, first and last name together, as though it's one name. The given names get merged together into like one long name.
First and middle name get all merged together.
Okay,
you said first and last.
First and last, yeah. First and middle is what I meant. Yes, absolutely. Yep. So I just on a lark tried that when I tried to pull up mine. I put in my first Nicholas Alexander all as one name for my first name, and then my last name in the last name field, and that pulled it up. So that worked for Greg to pull up the reservation.
Yeah, and it did finally occur to me, like right before Nick wrote that might have been the issue. I so rarely put my middle name on any tickets that it's not something I normally encounter, but that in fact worked, and our tickets are in place. So
Thank
Wow,
goodness.
we
Like,
have.
oh, well, you know, I going back for a second to when she canceled it. Like, this is like Greg said, this is maybe the most frustrating part of award booking, when you get to something like this and you really don't want the agent to mess it up, but it's totally out of your hands. You got no control. You're
Yeah,
on hold, and
right.
like that whole situation is crazy. And like I look at it and I say, what was the backup plan? Like, if she split that off and canceled it, like, the first agent misheard. Like, I'm sure you said Alexander,
Of
and so the
course.
first agent made a mistake in typing. So it was Virgin Atlantic's mistake from the get go. And then if they
Yeah,
compound that mistake by canceling the ticket, like, what was the backup plan? What was she going to do at that
yeah.
point? Like,
I can't imagine what they could have done. I mean, maybe she could have called ANA and tried to
maybe.
force the issue, but wow. I mean, the good thing is, I have to say, I had looked up in the meantime ANA, what ANA says to do when when you want to change a letter in a name like this. And oh my gosh, it's the most convoluted, complex process, which involves booking another seat on the same flight with the right name, and then canceling the original, and then somehow getting them to move the new one over to the old one. I don't know. It made no sense to me. I'm so glad we didn't have to try that.
Oh,
Of course,
yeah.
we wouldn't have had to anyway. Nick would have been able to board with being called Nicholas Alexander. I have no doubt that that would have worked fine.
I mean, really, when you just said it there, I couldn't
Uh,
tell which one you said for sure. So, you know, who would know, right? Who would know? And when you looked it up, you did find instances where people were like, the middle name is a little messed up and it was no problem,
yeah,
getting through.
yeah,
So I don't usually, that's part of the reason I don't put in the middle name, is because I don't want to make a mistake. And I figure anything extra that I have to enter, there's more of a chance that I make a mistake somewhere. So I try to enter as
right.
little information as I need to. Whatever the bare minimum is what I put in. And that's why I usually don't put in a middle name. But it didn't even occur to me that the agent would make a mistake. And this makes me a little bit more thankful. And I know a couple of people are going to roll their eyes out there, but a little bit more thankful for the way Turkish Miles and Smiles operates, because my goodness, they phonetically spell everything like 8 times on the phone. And then they send you the confirmation of the hold, so you can double check the spellings of everything before they go ahead and book it. And like here, that would have saved the day. But of course, after the fact, we had to sweat it out and hope that they got it right.
Yeah,
And to their credit, Virgin Atlantic agents are usually good. Like, in my experience in general, they're usually good at what they do. But
right, right.
Scary.
It was scary. It was scary. So some of the others on the team had some reactions, and we're gonna take turns reading the reactions. So first, I'll do Carrie's reaction. She wrote, "It took me a while to understand what was happening, but as I was reading the thread aloud to Drew, her husband, who used to have a major blog in Points and Miles, so he knows this stuff. He started reacting like, wow, you son of a gun." And then I could tell that whatever you were booking must be cool.
That's
I
great.
also have queued up, she made a little recording here, so I'm just going to play a little soundbite.
And so I'm still kind of playing catch up on what happened, but I think we all have some kind of first class ticket from Japan or something. Anyway, it's exciting.
I love that. She has no
Great.
idea what's going on. This was like in the moment when we were writing this. She recorded herself.
Well, truth be told, I mean, who does know what's going on? Because at this point, like, I mean, we mentioned how the agent gambled on canceling the ticket. We mentioned how he gambled on everybody's middle names and birthdays. What we didn't really touch on strongly enough is that we gambled on the fact that we can even put together a challenge that works with this, right? Because
Yeah.
we had some ideas floating for the next challenge. None of them involved Japan. So
Right.
so this was not on our radar, and like, we booked this because when are you ever going to be able to fly the entire team, like Greg said, in
Right.
in ANA first class? So
Right.
crazy.
And to be clear, we still don't know what the
No,
challenge is. All
no.
we know is that we have to be in Tokyo on a certain date in order
Right,
to
in
make
order
this
to make
flight.
this flight. Yes.
So we have this new constraint on the trip. So that's fun.
But you know what I like about that? That is the way that I tend to book trips. Like, if I find something with great availability, and this is something that I think is foreign to a lot of people that aren't used to booking trips this way. They're either new to award travel or just used to a traditional way of thinking about booking a vacation. Like, you book the outbound and the return at one time, and you book your hotel and it's all done. And that's just not the way
Right.
you have to do it sometimes with these like really rare and hard to find find things. You find something like this, you jump on it and you're like, well, I don't know how I'm getting there, but we'll figure that part out. Like,
yeah. And for people without status with Virgin Atlantic, I mean, I think they charge something like $50 per ticket to cancel or to change. And so, it was a minor risk from cash point of view, but not really a big one. Turns out I actually have gold status for some reason with Virgin Atlantic, and I would get free changes anyway.
Awesome.
So, so there was really no risk at all for me booking this, but it still felt like a risk. But anyway,
of course,
exciting payout. So I was most interested too in Steven's reaction, because he was the one that literally slept through the whole booking process, and
crickets
it would
from
be many
Steven.
hours later that he'd wake up and read this Slack channel thread that had like 300 messages in it. What does Steven say?
So Steven tells us, I read it on Slack when I woke up, and by the way, I had messaged his wife beforehand, and she said, oh, he looks at Slack and deals before he even says good morning. So I can picture Steven in a fog in the dark, like looking at his phone. He says, I read it on Slack when I woke up. When I saw Greg's initial post had about 180 replies, I knew something had to be going on while I was sleeping. As I scrolled through, it became clear what was happening. So my reserved, subdued British reaction was, looks like I might be going to Japan for a few months. Sorry, Steven, I tried. Not for a few months, in a few months. Looks like I might be going to Japan in a few months, kind of thing, right? Carrie has the video, so maybe I'll splice that in here, and so you don't have to listen to my accent. He said, I'm really looking forward to this. Only my second time flying first class, getting to try $500 whiskey, which is something that ANA is known for in first class. They tend to serve this really rare whiskey now and then, so we can hope that it ends up being on our flight. Who knows? But he said getting to try it if we can anyway, it'll be awesome, and it'll be my first time going to Japan too. I can't believe I have a boss who books me a first class plane ticket just because there's award availability. And oh my goodness, whose boss books a first class ticket to Japan that would otherwise cost north of 10 grand? I mean, we're looking at a trip that would cost somebody $60,000 to book. I mean, maybe if your boss is like Jay-Z, like, congratulations, Craig, you're the Jay-Z of points and miles, because
that's what I've always been called.
Thank you. I mean, that is pretty incredible. And I was thinking that the entire time also, that who does this? Like, who books their entire team, their entire company in ANA first class? Like, that I can't possibly happen often. It's gotta be like the first or second time in recorded history.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Tim also followed up with a big thanks for booking this, Greg, with exclamation points. And then he says, we'll have over half the cabin. So I don't know how many are there. What?
Eight. There's eight seats. 8 seats.
8 suites, and we'll have 5 of them. Wow.
Yeah.
And he says, I don't think I've ever seen or heard of 5 seats in the suite at one time, which of course he means 5 award seats being booked. Wow. That's
amazing.
That's pretty exciting. I'm still, the main reason I think I wanted to do the show about this today was because I couldn't really think about much of anything else. I'm so excited about this trip. I have no idea what it's going to involve other than this one flight, but it's going to be awesome.
No, I mean, like, how often do you get? So, I mean, I think probably people have the sense of the Frequent Miler team, and you're right that we're friends. We enjoy each other's company. We have a lot of fun. And so, like, when are you going to get the chance to fly an incredible first class product with 4 of your friends? Like that, there's just no chance, unless you live in an entirely different world where you're buying those things with cash. There's no chance that that's ever going to happen in life. So amazing that this happened. And I think it's a fantastic example of striking while the iron is hot, because we often say that you have to jump on these types of things when you get the chance, because you're not going to get the chance all the time. Now, there's always a new deal coming. So, I also caution people not to get, the FOMO, the fear of missing out, and do things that you shouldn't do or wouldn't do. But in a case like this, when you're trying to book multiple people, I often say you just have to jump on that one-way award availability. And so here we are, 5 of us, we know we're going to book, or we know we're going to fly in a first class from Japan to the United States. Pretty amazing.
Yeah. Incredible. All right.
All right.
That's the story. That was the adventure.
And we're sticking to it. And so we'll figure out the rest of this challenge, and you'll know when we know. So,
yeah.
we'll let you know.
And we'll let you know if there's always the chance that ANA will swap out the airplane for the lesser older one, which would be sad, but you know what? At this point, we'll do it anyway. We'll suffer through the old first class if we have to.
Right, right. Which, if you look up the old ANA first class, I'm sure you'll feel horrible for us that we might have to suffer that instead of the new suite with the 43-inch, television monitors at each seat. So, the old suite the old seat was fairly nice, also. All right, my friends, that brings us, I think, to this week's question of the week, though. So, this week's question of the week also has to do with award booking, and so it also has to do with Virgin Atlantic. So I thought this was a particularly interesting one to tie in. It's not anything to do with ANA, but Tim in our Frequent Miler Insiders group asked a great question. I'm curious to see whether you're going to know the answer. I do know the answer, thanks to members of the group. I'm curious to see if you'll know it. So Tim says, I have a Delta International flight round trip, JFK to Brussels, booked with Virgin Atlantic miles. If I add a positioning flight, which would be also a round trip flight between Pittsburgh and New York JFK with Virgin Atlantic miles. So again, this is going to be on Delta, booked with Virgin Atlantic miles. Would they later let me connect it all into one itinerary? The benefit would be protection on the return in case the flight is late. So what I'm gathering here is Tim is based in Pittsburgh. He booked because he found the availability, like we've said a million times before. He found availability between New York and Brussels, so he booked that as a round trip. Now he's found separately a round trip also on Delta between Pittsburgh and New York JFK, and he wants to know if he can link.
That's a miracle.
All right, it is. It is.
Delta releases award space to their partners so rarely that not finding the JFK one round trip, that was pretty good, but being able to link it exactly with another domestic one.
Right.
Amazing. So good
Buy
job.
A lottery
ticket,
Tim. And this is not Tim on our team. This is a reader, Tim. But yeah, so the fear here is the flight from Brussels to JFK has a somewhat tight connection time with the flight from JFK to Pittsburgh. And so, if he gets delayed, he gets stuck at customs, whatever else, wants to know whether those reservations can be linked so that Delta will get him on the next flight to Pittsburgh if he misses that reservation. What do you say?
Right. So my guess is that they would not be able to actually link them together onto one PNR record locator. That instead what they would do is add notes to the reservations, telling agents that they're linked. But in my experience with Delta, I don't know that anyone actually reads those notes. Anyway, that's my guess that's about the best you could do.
That's accurate. Readers confirmed and linked to a story elsewhere that no, they will not link them, and there's no protection on the separate tickets. So if you come in on a separate ticket there, you're just going to be out of luck if you miss the JFK to Pittsburgh flight. And because it would be close in, it would be the same day, presumably. I don't even think you'd be able to cancel it and get your miles back with Virgin Atlantic. Of course, that would probably be a huge number of miles for that short flight anyway. But I don't think you'll get either benefit of being put on a later flight or get your miles back. You'll just be stuck at JFK looking for a way to Pittsburgh.
Well, I actually think that Delta would let you stand by for a later flight. Is what I think would happen, as long as you let them know right away what happened. Hopefully, you have internet on that late flight coming in, and can contact somebody. I think they would, but can I guarantee it? No. I mean, Air Canada didn't let me do a similar thing last year. So
American Airlines apparently does, and apparently as a matter of policy, according to View from the Wing, as a matter of policy, if you have an American Airlines flight and a separate One World ticket back to back, and it can be, I think, either order, it has to be One World, not one of their non-One World partners. But if you have a One World ticket and an American Airlines ticket, separate tickets that are back to back, they will protect you on American. So so then you're okay. They'll get you to your final destination. You don't have to worry about it. But word on the street anyway is that will not be the case with everybody else. So maybe you're right. But standing by makes sense. Maybe they'll let you stand by for something. But they're not going to book you on the next available necessarily with a confirmed seat. So be aware of that.
Now,
go ahead.
Yeah. Good. I was just going to say, one thing you can do, though, is if you're checking your bags, you can check your bags all the way through from your home airport all the way through. You just show at the check-in counter both reservations, and they can do that.
Okay. Well, good. That's good to know. Now, the other piece I would add to this, I don't know how you feel about this, but in my experience, because I would be somewhat concerned about that, I try not to make the positioning flights that tight. Like if I'm in a position,
Mm-hmm.
I would always prefer to have a night in between. And it's not always the most
Yeah.
convenient because it adds a little more time to the trip and whatnot. Kind of a pain to get your bags and bring them to the hotel and bring them back to the airport and all the rest of that. But I would rather do that than end up in a situation where I miss the flight and I've got a headache now trying to get back home. So I try not to do that. Now, of course, I'm sure that Tim was limited by whatever Delta actually had available to partners, and so was booking this because this is the one flight that they had available. So I'm not no judgment on Tim's booking there, but generally speaking, I'd prefer my positioning flights to be a day before on the outbound and a day after on the return.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe he can book day later award flight that's freely cancelable as a backup, and then cancel it if he gets on his originally scheduled one.
That's a great
That
point.
would be a good,
whether with Delta or with somebody else using miles,
yeah,
because there's so many airlines now offering free cancellation. The United States, U.S. based airlines, all would offer free cancellation. I think in that scenario, so
yeah.
booking it
Could actually do it with cash too, but
true.
The cash back would usually be in the form of
a voucher
credit with that airline. So if that's okay with you, that would be fine too.
Right. All right. Great points there. Unfortunately, we are at the end of today's show. If you've enjoyed today's episode and you'd like to get on our email list, so the next time that ANA releases 5 award seats in first class, you can book that right away. You want to go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe and just don't hold your breath that that's going to happen twice. But you want to go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list anyway. Get our posts in your inbox each week. You can follow us on all the various social media. Wherever you're watching this or listening to this, please give us a like, a thumbs up, a comment, enable notifications, turn all that stuff on, subscribe. We appreciate all of that stuff. And we will see you guys again next week.
Bye, everybody.